Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and walk you through an Inkscape tutorial on how to blend two pattern sizes. I recently posted a celebratory post in the Projectors for Sewing group on having been able to do this, and I had a lot of requests on a video on a walkthrough tutorial. So I'm going to go ahead and do that for you. Okay, so this is a new document in Inkscape. You can see the new page here. First things first, I like to make this a little wider so that you can read the names of everything here, and then you can play around with centering this. Okay, then we're going to come up here to File, and we're going to import our pattern that we would like to make some changes to. Okay, so import, and I've already gone ahead and decided that we're going to use this free pattern from Patterns for Pirates, and it's the pencil skirt. We'll go ahead and double click on that. The nice thing about this pattern is that it all exists on one page. If you have a pattern that exists on more than one page, you can definitely go ahead and import them all, but you have to do it page by page. So far, I have not found a way to import all of the pages at once, which is a little frustrating, but if you just have a little patience, you can go ahead and select which page you're importing, make sure that you bring in all the pages that you want or need, and then you can either piece them together or you can spread them out however you like to have them proportioned. Okay, so this is the one page that I need, so I'm going to go ahead and click OK. Wait for it. There it is. Okay, so it's already selected, so we're going to go ahead and just leave it selected and come up here to the File tab, and we're going to go ahead and hit Document Properties. Okay, now that we're here, I usually like to change things to inches. That just adjusts everything so that it's in inches, so that if you need to make any reference points on your pattern pieces, you can with the inches. And then I'll go ahead and resize page to drawing or selection. And what that's going to do is make this working space the size of the pattern piece that is already selected. So we'll hit that, give it a minute, and it will readjust itself. Now that that's done, I'm going to go ahead and close this window. I don't really need to change anything else, and we can move this over until it's kind of centered. I'm going to zoom out. My zooming is down here until I can see the whole pattern piece. Okay, that's good enough. So for this tutorial, I'm going to go ahead and just work on the front pattern piece, which is this one here. You can go ahead and take everything that you learn here and work on any other pattern pieces that might be within the pattern. And then what we're going to do is blend, let's say, the two sizes, large and extra large. Okay, and so to do that, the first thing that you want to do is take note of what this layer is called, and you can do that over here. This is the Patterns for Pirates, and it's all within layer 1. Okay. So next thing I'm going to do is create another layer, and we're going to call this one large, since we've already decided that we're going to have a large and extra large blending. You can do this however you like. You can do it below, you can do it above. Just don't do it as a sub layer. That gets confusing. So I'm going to go ahead and hit below just so that we keep layer 1 up here, and then all the other layers we can add below. Okay, so in this window you'll see it thinking, and now we have layer large. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is create another layer, and we're going to call it extra large, and we're going to hit below current and add that to our window. Give it a second to think. So now we should have layer 1, large, and extra large. Cool. Okay, we're going to come back to this layer and take our pieces, make copies of them, and move them into the correct layers. So to do that, we're going to come over here to the left, and we're going to select this Edit Paths by Nodes button. And you can see that when I hover above the pattern pieces, it will select one of the sizes. For this pattern piece, I'm not sure why, because other pattern pieces typically will highlight the entire piece, but for this one they've done it in 3 sections. So you'll see the high-rise cut line and the mid-rise cut lines are separate, so that's actually more than 3 pieces, so you can decide which one you want. And then this hip line here is another piece, and then if you come down here, the above the knee cut line is another option, and then this piece will run all the way down to the longest length, and then you have a below the knee cut line and a midi cut line, which is just the long size. Okay, so I've decided we're going to go ahead and use the high-rise cut line, and then we'll need the hip piece, and I'm going to use the midi cut line, which is the longest length for both the large and the extra large. Okay, so let's work on the large pieces. Actually, I take that back. We're going to work on the extra large pieces first. Reason being is every time that I make a selection and duplicate it, I can only move it 1 layer down. So that being said, we're going to take all the extra large pieces, move them down 1 layer. Once they're all in the large layer, we can go ahead and grab them and just move them down into the extra large. That'll just make things a little bit easier so that we're not confusing which pieces. And you'll see what I mean in a second. So first things first, we're looking for the extra large, which is here, and it shows it as being a red piece with little dashes. Okay, so I'm just going to come over here and look for the correct piece and click on it. And you want to make sure that you have the correct one selected, and you can tell because the node is placed on the correct size. Okay, so to duplicate it, let's see, is it object? No, it is in edit. This is the duplicate button. This is what we want to click on next after having selected it with the nodes cursor. Moving forward, I'm going to go ahead and just use a Control D because it's a quicker way to do it. And as you get familiar with Inkscape, you'll learn all the little keyboard commands and things will just move along much quicker. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that, and you'll see the screen over here working to create that layer. So the next thing we want to do is move this duplicated piece into the layer below, which we'll do by hitting layer, and then down here it says move selection to layer below. You can also do shift plus page down. Okay, so I'm going to click on that, and again you'll see the computer working to move that piece. And now in the large layer you'll see that we have a pattern piece. Remember, this is the extra large piece, but we've moved it into the large layer, and we're going to do that for all the extra large pieces. And I'll explain the next step after we get all the pieces. So next thing, we're going to look for the extra large cut line. Here it gets a little tricky to see, but you can see the nodes that you already have selected and just carry up and over into this piece. So that's selected. Now I'm going to hit Control D, wait for this to make the second piece, and then we're going to move it into the layer below. So now you should have two pieces in the large layer. We do. Awesome. Okay, last piece that we need is down here, and remember it should be the same one along the same line as what we've been selecting before. And to double check, you can make sure that the nodes are placed correctly. Sometimes it looks like it's a different one, so just make sure that you have it selected correctly, and we do, and hit Control D, and then I'm going to move it into the layer below. So now we should have all three pieces to make up one extra large front piece. And we can see here in the large layer that we do have three pieces. And now to make sure that we have the correct pieces, I'm going to come up to the very top, and I'm going to make layer 1 invisible. Okay, it looks like a skirt. Awesome. So the next thing we want to do is move these pieces into the correct layer, because currently they're in the wrong layer. And to do that, I just come down to the large where the pattern pieces are located, and I'm just going to click and drag them into the large. It'll work for a minute. I'll take this again, the next piece, click and drag into the large. And I'm going to do that for all three pieces. Click and drag. Sometimes Inkscape is a little unresponsive, and I'm not really sure why. So just give it a minute, let it do its thing. And now we have all three pieces here in the large layer where they should be. And to make sure that they all look like they should, I'm going to make the large layer, well, this is just more for peace of mind because nothing should change. It should still look like this. But both the first layer and the large layer are invisible. And so we can see that all the pattern pieces are now in the extra large layer where they should be. Okay, I'm going to make this visible, and I'm going to make layer 1 visible again so that we can grab our large pieces. Okay, so we're going to keep doing what we were doing for the large pieces, which are the dotted black lines, or broken black line, which is this one right here. And again, you can see the nodes are placed in the correct place. So I'm going to go ahead and Control D, wait for it to think. When it's done thinking, I'll come up to the layer and hit it, move selection to layer below. Let it think. I'm going to do the same thing for the high-rise large piece. Control D, let it think, layer, move to selection below. And now because we're moving from layer 1 to the large layer, which is the one directly below the first layer, they're all moving into the right spot. So now we don't have to move these around anymore. They will just be in the place that they should. Okay. Next piece is broken black line, this one here, and that's the final piece. Control D, let it think, layer, move selection to layer below. And now I have all three pieces where I want them to be. Okay, so here's just a thought. If you have no need to really make a ton of changes, or I don't know, you can definitely leave these two in the same page, in the same layer. I'm just a little bit OCD and want to make sure that all the pieces are separated and in their own layer. There might be reasons to have them separated. I just haven't come across them yet. This is just what makes my brain happy, so that's what I do. So now we have both of these layers, and we no longer need layer 1 to do our adjustments. So I'm going to go ahead and make it invisible. You do want to keep it for a little bit later, but now we have all of the pieces that we need. And I'm going to scroll down here. We're going to be working with the large and extra large, and I'm going to create one more layer. So I'm going to go ahead and add, and we're going to go below current. So it's going to be in between. Actually, let's hit cancel. We're going to click on this one, we're going to add one, and we're going to do below. So it'll just be the bottom layer, and I'm going to name this one custom. Not sure why it's not typing. Custom. Okay. And add. Let it think. Scroll down. So now I have large, extra large, and custom. Okay. So to make our custom layer, we're going to duplicate all three pieces again, and then we're going to make the changes, and then we'll move those pieces into this custom layer. Okay, so I'm going to work with the large, and using the nodes button, we're going to highlight one of the pieces, and let's say for this custom piece we need a large sized waist, and we need an extra large sized hip, and we need something midway between these two bottom portions. Okay, so for this piece I'm going to make changes here, but before I do, this is the actual piece that is in the large layer, so I don't want to make changes to this because I'll lose a guideline. Okay, so I'm going to Control D, give it a second. We should now have 4 pieces here, and the one that's highlighted should be the one that we just created, and we can go ahead and make changes to this now. So I need some more hip space. I actually really don't need any hip space. I wish I did, but I know this is a common adjustment for people, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. If you were like myself and had a waistline that needed less hip space, you could also be doing this in the reverse, right? So you would be leaving this as the waistline and bringing this in my case 2 sizes, but make the adjustments that you need for your body to make your clothing pieces fit you the way that you like. And let's see. You can also change this into inches up here so that you can make really accurate choices. So for example, let's say we're moving this and making this line curved like this. You can set up guidelines by clicking up here and resetting this to inches. You can move these around Oh, that doesn't show. How did I do that? Oh, that's right, the ruler. Okay, so you can set guidelines for yourself in here. And let's just say you know your measurement from your waistline down to the widest point of your hip is 7 inches. You can set that here and then bring a guideline from up here. You just kind of drag. Whoops, I did that wrong. Let's say this is 7 inches. Get it as close as you can. Hit the arrow. No, that's not working. How did I do that? Oh, there we go. Yeah, I have to kind of be in the ruler up there to drag it down. And then you can set this guideline to cross that. And you'll know that this is 7 inches from your waistline. These guidelines are really useful, especially if you know these measurements. If you're working for someone else, making a custom design piece for somebody else and you've taken all the measurements, you can do that. You can also obviously just measure yourself as you're working and make this so that everything fits really nicely. Okay, so back to my nodes. If you know that your widest point is here and you need this to be a certain measurement out, again, you can set up all kinds of guidelines. So 7 inches down and make markings from here, the center point out to here. And you can make sure you're not doing that. Let's say you need from the center point of your waist out to 11 inches. So here and here, and you can have a cross point. And so let's say you actually extend past this size piece, you can go ahead and do that, extend just the hip, but you need the rest of the size piece. You know, there's so many different things that you can do with this program, aside from just blending between two size pieces. So just keep that in mind as you're working. If you need to play around, or say you're in between 3 sizes, you can drag 3 different size pieces in here and then get really specific with how you make these changes. But again, back to our blending of 2 sizes. I'm going to go ahead and click on this, and we're going to come back to adjusting our nodes. Okay, so you can see that my node currently is wanting to stick to the guidelines. Whoops, sorry, I'm getting some messages. And so to make that not happen, if we come over here to the right panel, at least on my screen, I've seen other Inkscape screens that look very different from mine, and I'm not really sure why. But if you click on this button here, it says Snap Nodes, Paths, and Handles. If you click on that, it will gray out all of these, and then it'll let you move your nodes in between the other markings and things that it wants to stick to, basically, and get right in between or just off, or however you need it to be. So you can go ahead and do that. We're going to say that this person needs the hip measurement of the extra large. Okay. And this point, we're going to leave on the extra large. And this one, we're going to kind of grade between the waist and the hip. Okay, so that looks nice and smooth. You can adjust this however you'd like it to be, whatever you need it to be. And then I'm going to start working on the final piece, which is this one. And we're going to say that this person needs something in between the two sizes. So Control D. You can see we have another piece added here. And now we can adjust these in between the two sizes. All right, and now she's all done. So to move the three pieces into the custom layer, go ahead and select that one, and you can see it's selected here. I'm just going to drag it into the custom. It's working great, and then again I'm going to click on the custom piece that we adjusted. And for whatever reason, sometimes it just doesn't highlight it over here. What you can do is, since we know that we were working in the large, oh, actually we didn't make copies of all of the pieces. So if we click on this one, we can see that that is the one that we need to move. If we click on this one, we can see that that's the original piece down here. So I'm going to come back up to this one. We know we want that in the custom. It's working. Okay, so the three that are left here are going to be the original, because we had three to start with, and so we can see that it's this piece that we did not move. We moved one of these and we moved one of these. We need to duplicate this, so Control D. Okay, and now I'm just going to pick that up and drag it into custom. It's working great. We should have all three pieces into the custom layer now. And so I'm going to go ahead and make the extra large invisible. Give it a second. Again, sometimes it's just unresponsive and I really don't know why. I wish I could fix that. Okay, now it's invisible. See, that layer is gone. And then let's make the large one invisible also. And now this is just our custom piece, and you can see it's a complete skirt piece, which is exciting. This little point here is a little weird, so I'm gonna get a little closer to smooth that out just a bit. That looks a little better, just so that it's not like, it shouldn't have an angle here, right? We don't want to have like a poof. So you can play around with your line until it's however you like it. Okay, and then we can go ahead and back up. Looks good. Yay, we have a pattern piece. Okay, so the only other thing that I would do for this piece is to bring over the name, how many you should cut, where the fold line is. A lot of times it's a little tricky to do that from the original layer because there's just so much going on. So what I will do is just type them in myself. I know where the fold is, so I'll go ahead and type that in, and then I'll use my arrow, and you can, if it's already selected, it'll show you the arrows like this, and this is just going to allow you to make it bigger or smaller, or, you know, play with the proportions. If you double click, whoops. Actually, that was a single click. If it's already selected and you hover over it until you get that little arrow, the little plus arrow, and click on it, you'll get these guys, and you can turn them so that you can place this. You can see my cursor will sometimes change to have a little arrow with it, and that means you can move it around or click on it again to get the other arrows to show. And on a piece this small, sometimes it's hard, but just have some patience, find the little arrows, you can click on it and get the different directions. Okay, so there's the fold. Another thing you might want to bring over are the arrows that show your grain line. You can do that from the original piece. Again, I have a really hard time bringing those over because there's just so many layers and so much going on. So a lot of times I will just reference layer 1. Takes a second to bring those layers back, take a look at it, and just decide what do I need to have on that pattern piece to make sure that I cut it out properly. I've already got the fold. You can add the names of everything. I just tend to do that in the document name. I don't need to see that on my piece as I'm projecting it. I do need to know that it's the front. I need to cut one on the fold, and then the stretch and the grain line. A 1/2-inch seam allowance is useful as well. So you can go ahead and type that all in on your pattern piece. I'm going to make this invisible. Again, you just do that by hitting the text little button, and then you can type all that in, add anything else that you'd like, and the arrows for your grain lines. But yeah, that's how I was able to do that and get working on Inkscape. I taught myself this very painfully over the last few days with several videos on YouTube on just Inkscape in general. And then one of our members, let me bring up her name because I do want to give her credit. I did watch some of her videos to get a hang of everything. And her name is Marta. I am going to butcher your last name, Marta. Marta Gozdinskaya. In our group. Thank you so much for your videos. Very helpful. At times a little overwhelming because you really did give us so much information, but definitely really helpful to getting me to this point in my Inkscape career, if you will. But yeah, it's definitely something that I know I have a lot more to learn on, but this is beyond helpful to getting a lot of those pattern adjustments done on the computer so that we can go ahead and project them. Speaking of which, I'm going to show you how to go ahead and save this so that you can project it. Layer 1 is no longer necessary once you've got everything customized and done. So I go ahead and delete it. Large layer, don't need it. Go ahead and delete. And the extra large as well. I go ahead and delete everything that I don't need. So now that it's in the custom piece, it's ready to go. I'm going to delete these guidelines. Can I delete them? Should be able to, right? Okay, so here's my piece. Obviously you would have the other pattern piece over here as well, and have it ready for projection. And so what you do is you hit File, and oddly enough, you hit the print button. This should be selected. It says Microsoft Print to PDF, and I don't really change anything else. I haven't found a need to, and I go ahead and hit print, and then you can put them wherever you save them to, name it whatever you want to. This is a pattern for pirate. You can see that I already did this once before, but I didn't get any audio, so here I am again, going through the steps. Okay, so we're just going to name this 2 and save. Great, so now that's saved on my desktop, and when I go to get ready to project something, I can go ahead and open this file, and it will be ready to project as usual. Oh, another thing that is very helpful to bring over from the original layer, if, well, I already deleted it, but make sure you bring over your 1-inch square for calibration. That's always helpful to have, and then you can just go ahead and use this file as usual. Alright everybody, I hope you find this helpful, and I hope that you're able to make all of your adjustments that you need, and happy sewing!